again, my name is Jessica Anderson. I'm the sales manager for landscape management and maintenance. Last year, our winter conference was my very first day, and now here I am, so that's super cool. It's been a big year. It's been a big year for us at Planted Earth. Our next speaker is going to give you a little bit of information about what exactly that means for us. Our next speaker is Mr. Frank Mariani. He became the president of Mariani Landscape a little while ago, maybe when Chris Madrani was still in diapers, possibly. Through the years, Mariani Landscape evolved into one of the most high-end residential landscape companies in the United States. But Frank had bigger dreams. Frank had dreams to become one of the world's premier outdoor living companies. Frank had a plan. He began gathering a bunch of individual, unique landscaping businesses who had knowledge and information to share with each other. He got this group together to learn and to grow, and this year Planted Earth was invited to be part of that group. Now known as the Mariani Premier Group, which is made up of 17 local landscape companies and counting. Frank calls the Mariani Group the ultimate industry premier group, created to help each of its individual companies become even better. Under Frank's leadership, both Mariani Landscape and Mariani Premier Group have received numerous awards for excellence in all aspects of landscaping. Frank's personal honors and the organizations he served are equally numerous, including, in part, past president and board member of the Mid-America Horticulture Trade Show, past president of the Illinois Landscape Contractors Association and 1994's ILCA Man of the Year, member of NELC's Board of Directors, Chicago Area Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame inductee, and he continues to serve on the boards of numerous local businesses and charities. Today, Frank will be talking to us about the evolution of Mariani Landscape and the Mariani Premier Group, from the time it was founded by his father in 1958 until the present. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Frank Mariani.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I've got to follow Mr. Olmsted. I mean, this sounds weird. I've got a high school education. I don't know how I followed that up. But anyway, that was absolutely spectacular. And he mentioned Chicago quite a few times. If you haven't read Devil in the White City, I suggest you do that. It's one of the greatest books of all time. And it talks about a lot of the things that Frederick just brought up. But anyway, I want to thank you all. I'd like to start by understanding who's here. First of all, I do know who's here, and that's Chris and Marcy and the entire Planet Earth team. Would you all stand up, those members of that team? That's a nice group. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for welcoming me and inviting me here tonight. And I want to thank you for being the terrific partners that you are. I'm proud of each and every one of you. And it's another feather in our cap as far as trying to build the best landscape company in the world. So thank all of you. And then something I like to do so I don't insult anybody. Are there any competitors of Planet Earth here today? Any other landscape companies that might compete with Planet Earth? No? So I can talk about McHale or anybody. Okay, this is good. Oh, we got the one McHale. I knew there was a spy. Say hello to Kevin and Steve and the whole team over there, please. Building architects. Any architects here? Thank you for coming. Hope I don't bore you. Who else is represented here? We have some subcontractors that work with the Planet Earth group.
Eddie's here somewhere.
Great, welcome. Okay, who am I forgetting, Chris?
And all the landscape architects that are here.
A lot of landscape architects that you team up with. Could you landscape architects please stand up, because I'm gonna give you my business card later. Wow.
That is the reason we do this, is to hang out with our clients. That's the
Well,
reason.
that's a good thing. I usually hang out with them in bars, but this is something like this. But anyway, I want to welcome all of you, and I'm very excited that you're here. Let's see. Is that our show there? It's a journey from small beginnings to leading the industry. That's kind of says it all. Our roots. I think I'm going to start with our roots. My father came to this country in 1954. A pretty good story. My grandfather lived, his family was from the same town in Italy. He had a small nursery business, a little retail business, and they might have been the start of design build way back when, 1915, in Lake Forest, Illinois. They had a small nursery, about 65 acres, and my grandfather didn't do snow in the winter. So in the winter, he would travel back to a little town, Valenzano, which is a suburb of Bari, the heel of the boot in Italy, and go visit his family. And every winter, or almost every other winter, he'd go there. One year he took my mom. My mom met my father, and they got married in Italy. And I actually was made in Italy in 1954 and born here. I have a stamp I can show you later. But anyway, that was the beginning. So on my mom's side, my grandfather John Fiore was a wonderful man. Had a great nursery, had a great eye for not only growing beautiful trees and shrubs and ornamentals, but he also had a nice design eye, and he did some beautiful estates on the North Shore of Chicago, which was, ample opportunity. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster because Frederick took a little bit more time than I was counting on. But anyway, and actually his was a lot more interesting than mine. So I'm going to fast forward. 1958, my parents were divorced, which was highly unusual for an Italian family. But my grandfather on my mom's side still loved my dad and helped him start a little maintenance business. And in those days, my dad would go out and do these small homes in a little suburb called Skokie. He'd do 20 homes in a day. And then he also did some of the larger estates. And he built his business because he had 3 boys already by 4 years and 2 more coming. And for a guy who had a 6th grade education, he was an amazing man. He had just an appetite for learning. In our home, as we grew up, and back in those days, you didn't speak Italian in the house. You were in America, and he was proud to be in America. And so, I kind of regret it to this day. I know a little bit of Italian. I know most of the swear words, but what we did is focused on being good citizens. That's what was important to my dad. And in 1958, he was off to the races. As I said, just doing strictly maintenance. My dad, at that time, Chicago had a population of Puerto Ricans, which was second to San Juan. And so the workforce at my grandfather's nursery was all Puerto Rican. The workforce at Mariani Landscape, or Vito Mariani Gardening, was all Puerto Rican. So fast forward, 1973, I just graduated high school, and my father, like my grandfather, would go back to visit his family in Italy. And at that time, at O'Hare Field, you'd go to customs to pick them up. And there was a second story, you'd look down and everybody would walk through customs. My dad, for some reason, I don't know what happened to me, but my dad and my son, 6'2", handsome, hair, and then me in the middle. I don't know what happened. But my dad was 6'2", well built, but I was with my brother to pick up my dad, and I said, boy, Dad just doesn't look right. I mean, he was thin. And sure enough, he had leukemia. So graduating from high school. The colleges were not clamoring for me to go there, quite frankly. I'd like to tell everybody I was ready to go to Harvard, but that's really not the true story. So my dad came and he went to the doctor and they said, "You got 3 months to live." He never told us that, but we knew what was happening. And he said, "Frank, you know, you're the oldest of 5 boys, you know, would you run the company?" And I said, "Dad, I like to eat as much as anybody, so I think that's a good idea, and I'm happy to do that." And we were off to the races. As I mentioned, my dad was given 3 months. We found that out in March. He lasted 2 days after we closed in November. And excuse me, that speaks to the devotion my father had to our business and to our family. You know, it was important for him to show me everything it took to run a business. And I'll never forget that, and I think about him every day. The thing that struck me the most is that in '73, I had my dad's tax return, $90,000 in revenue, 90,000. But he was a hell of a lot smarter than me. He declared he actually made 30,000. I've never been able to match that return. How about you, Bob? 30%? What do you think? So, you know, I know Chris and Marcy are planning on 30%, but I was never smart enough. And we actually wrote it in their contract, so that's good. So, it's 1973, we're doing $90,000. It was the same accounts that my dad had. And, you know, I thought about a couple things. Number one, when I was going to a little small Catholic school, and when I was in high school, my friends, their father were attorneys, you know, they were doctors. One was a TWA captain, another one, you know, anyway, all these professional people, and my dad cut grass. And to this day, I regret that because my dad cut grass. What I realized once I took the reins of the company is that what everybody in this room does, whether it's landscape architecture or it's running a landscape company, I mean, think about all the different things that we do each and every day. Our jobs are, if we're doing them well, they're so complicated, it's unbelievable. You've got, you know, you've got cultural issues, you know, with you know, people from different countries coming in. You've got the environment to deal with, you've got the government to deal with, you've got just HR, you know, it goes on and on and on. And the more I thought about this, I made a pledge to myself that I would never, ever be embarrassed that my father cut grass. What my father does and what all of you do is something that's so inspirational. Take it from Frederick. What you can do with it, if in fact you have the desire to do the best in whatever particular part of this green industry that you do. It's an honor to be in this, and that's why my dad passed away November 8th, 1973. That this past November was 50 years for me. And people say, "Frank, why are you doing this?" You want to know why I'm doing this? Because I have the associates at Mariani Landscape, 50 this year are in the quarter of a century club. That doesn't happen by accident. In other words, they've been there over 25 years, many of them 40 to 45 years. I've got our clients at Midwest Mariani who are personal friends and have helped mentor me and just wonderful relationships. And I have people like Bob Marzilli, Chris, and Marcy, Vedrani, and all of you of friends. That's my whole life. The green industry is my whole life. And that's why it doesn't feel like 50 years. I'm hoping I have another 50, but it doesn't feel like 50 years for me. So anyway, that's a little bit about where we were at. But in '73, I would wake up in the winter, and I bet you there's other people in this room the same way. And at that time, we didn't do snow. So what I would do in the winter is repair all equipment, and do things like that. And I'd also travel and visit all my friends that were at college. That actually was kind of enjoyable. But the other thing I did is I would wake up every single morning in a pool of sweat. I mean, every single morning, and this didn't stop until a few years ago. Thinking I'm going to lose every maintenance account that I have. Over the winter, somebody else is going to come up with a better idea of how to do maintenance. Somebody's going to offer them a price they can't refuse. Somebody's going to steal all of our associates at Mariani. All this negative stuff in my head. But what it did is that drove me just to always strive to be better. One of the things that criteria that comes along a little bit later, but as we added partners, we only partner with companies that have the same type of philosophy and the same really honest feeling about their associates, that those associates are the most important segment of their business. And that's who we've decided to partner with, and it's made this selection process pretty easy, but I'm going to talk about that a little later, and I'm sorry if I'm getting off track. But anyway, so we had the 9 Puerto Ricans and me, and Sundays, you wash the trucks, I wash the trucks, I cleaned the machines, I changed the oil, I swept out the garage, did something called payroll, did AP, did AR, then went to church, and then the most important part of the day, made a fantastic Italian dinner, which I'm still pretty good at. But that was Sunday. But that said, I said to myself, I said, look, Frank, you don't have a formal education. I'm taking classes at night at the local junior colleges, port, design, business, anything like that I could do. But I clearly knew that I have to build a team. And so people have asked me year after year after year, how did you go from $90,000 to when we sold at 12/31/20, we were the largest residential company at $60 million. I never set out to do $60 million. I could care less about $60 million. I've been fortunate in my life because I keep things as simple as possible because I'm not that smart of a guy. All I knew is that if I had Julie, who was a fantastic landscape architect, I never hired anybody for a job. To this day, I always hired people for a career. Never thought, when I hear the latest group, I'm a baby boomer, what do they call them now? Whatever they call them now. I don't believe in these different, but they say, well, the new generation, they only want to work 3 years before they move on. I don't believe that. First of all, if you look at some for your landscape architects, the schools are not the same as they were. University of Illinois used to be one of the best landscape architecture schools in the country. Still very, very good. They don't have a HORT program. Reason, there's no butts in the seat of the HORT program, so they eliminated the program. Didn't make money, that's what colleges and universities do. But anyway, I always thought that we could go around and we could build our team with the best landscape architects. We thought we could build our team having the best designers because there is a difference. Sometimes designers a little bit more involved with fine gardening that takes great landscape architecture to that next level. We thought we could have people that really knew agronomy. We thought we could take people who don't just talk sustainability, actually live to make a difference. For those of you who believe in this big climate debate, I will ask each and every one of you, I can't believe that people get in some of the disagreements that they get in, but at the end of the day, if we can do anything to eliminate pollution, is that a good thing? Whether you believe that Mother Nature is bigger than the pollution that we create or not. Is it a good thing to eliminate pollution? We all know the answer. The answer is yes. So that drives us to who we decided to hire. And it also drives us at Mariani, back when it was my company, to add different things, like fine gardening, like native gardening, like landscape architecture, and right on down. And that's how we grew from 90,000 to 60 million. The other reason we did that was to keep Julie at Mariani. Therefore, we've got 3 landscape architects, Sarah, Carrie, and Tony Labello, out of our team, that have been with the company 33, 34, and 36 years. Each one of them could have started their own firm anytime they wanted to, but they saw the advantages of teaming up and staying with us. That to me is my greatest accomplishment, that I've got people like that who could clearly have gone out and started their own businesses, seeing the benefits of staying associated with us, which I'll get to later if you guys remind me to talk about career paths and incentive plans and things like that, again, that I think differentiate Mariani Premier Group from any other platform that's doing landscaping. So, by the way, I didn't show any pictures, I didn't show any. Oh, by the way, I could have had, I'm a caveman when it comes to this stuff, so excuse me, but, my father was handsome, was that guy handsome or what? I don't know what happened to me. The chubby guy on top with the beard, that's me. The even chubbier guy in the bottom, that's me and my son Frank Jr. And there we are again over there. But anyway, he's another handsome guy. Our growth, our growth. Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to point out is I would encourage all of you to go to Mariani Premier Group and go through the different companies that we've assembled. And every one of them has all the pictures in the world. Typically, when I've done these presentations before, I just show projects and I talk about where we were, what was the wow, you know, where we ended up. You can do that on your own by just going through everybody's website and seeing the different talents that each and every company has. But, you know, right now, after we got to about 4 years ago, my son came to me, and again, I share anything. You can ask me any question you want. My son came to me and he said, Dad, I love working with you, I love doing the business, but you are crazy, and I don't want to leave Mariani Landscape. And I said, well, what's up, Frank? And again, I'll repeat myself. He said, it's our associates, it's our clients, and it's people in the green industry. That's what drives you each and every day, and you love this, and, you know, I've got other aspirations. I said, first of all, Frank, I never intended to let you take the company. What do you think this is, a free deal? So, I mean, we got past that really quickly. But, I said to him, I said, you know, son, here's what's important. That we're going to look at an ESOP, or we're going to look at what other companies are doing, which is this, what they call roll-ups. We're not doing a roll-up. We're doing a consolidation of partners. We're doing a consolidation of best brands. So I said, I'm going to do that. He said, why, Dad? I said, because those people that are in the Quarter of a Century Club and soon to be in the Quarter of a Century Club, I want them to know that they have a career when I'm 6 feet under. And that's what drives me. He said, I'm all with you, Dad. So I looked at ESOP, really didn't work for me. I looked at maybe 20 or 30 different platform PE groups. Most of them, after the meeting, I had to go take a shower really quickly. But finally got down to a couple of companies that I thought could really work with us. We've been very fortunate partnering with a company that understands that we want to achieve a simple script to be the best landscape company in the world. And that's really something that I've set out to do since 1973, and always thought we were getting there, but always understood that we could learn so much more. And now that I've got partners like Bob Marzilli, like the Planet Earth team, we are on that road to success. And as long as I'm breathing, to be the best will deliver all the results that most businesses are looking for, whether it's profitability, whether it's growth, whether it's opportunity for the team. Being the best, for me, is that simple roadmap. How am I doing with time?
You'll let me know.
Okay, all right. So, I've always challenged myself to do things that I'm incredibly uncomfortable with. And one of my clients, who happened to end up being my partner, Fred Wacker. And Fred Wacker, I went to Deerfield High School. Fred Wacker went to a little school called Princeton. And then he got his MBA from Kellogg, at Northwestern. And so he's a pretty smart guy. And he built his family business. They built precision valves for companies called Boeing and NASA and things like that. And he recognized that there were much mega companies out there. Although they were doing about $300 million a year, there were billion-dollar companies he was competing against, and he sold his company at the right time, his family business. And he called me up and he invited me, he said, let's go to lunch. We were in a thing called Young Presidents Organization, YPO. And he invited me to go to YPO. I should start with that. And I was intimidated because it was companies that were at least $15 million in Chicago. We were very close. We were just like a little over 15 million. But I was dealing with billionaires and these mega companies. And I was intimidated. He said, Frank, you'll love it. You'll enjoy it. You'll get a lot out of it. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. It was one of the best things I've ever did. I made lifelong friends. And what you do with the Young Presidents Organization is you have somewhere between 7 and 12 people, men and women, different types of businesses, where you sit down, complete confidentiality, whether it's personal or business, and you share ideas. So I did that. Fred and I got to be great friends. At one of the meetings, I shared that I needed a president because, quite frankly, the company was getting bigger than Frank Mariani. The next, Fred said, well, why don't we go out to lunch? And being Frank Mariani, I never go out to lunch with one person. I invited the whole group. So we all went out, and then Fred, he said, I really wanted to talk to you alone. I said, well, you should have said that before we went out. But anyway, the next morning we got together, and he said, I want the job as your president. I think I was 20 million then. I said, you've been running $300 million company. You just sold your business for a hell of a lot of money, and you want to come and work in a landscape? You want to work in a business that cuts grass? Going back to what I used to think about my dad. And he said, yeah. He said, I think it's important that I show my family that I go to work each and every day. And you have a phenomenal business. You have the best business in Chicago for a high-end residential. We shook hands, never did a contract, never did anything, still my partner to this day. But what it taught me was this. I was always embarrassed I didn't have that sheepskin in my office. I was, I had a complex about that. What Fred said is, Frank, taking this business, what you all do in this room is 10 times harder than what I did with my business. All the different things that I mentioned earlier come at you day in and day out when you're trying to build a business, especially if you want to attain the highest standards and, in fact, be the best. Sometimes when I put my head on the pillow at night, I said, Frank, why are you just trying to do this and do this and to do this and to do this? And because we could make a hell of a lot more money if we didn't make it this complicated. And some of the things, the fine details that maybe we notice in this room, other people don't notice. Well, guess what? As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to notice that edge. I'm going to notice the right plant. I'm going to notice the right plant being planted in the right method. I'm going to notice how maintenance is done. That's what's going to drive me, and I'm going to strive to learn how to do masonry like R.P. Marzilli does. When you go to their site and you look at what they do with granite with marble, with bricks, with everything. Their hardscape is here. I thought our team in Chicago, which we sub out most of all of our hardscape, it's done by Fernando Guidarini. Chances are he has more vowels in his name than I do. His whole team are Italian craftsmen. They come from a little town up in northern, mid-northern Italy, Abetone. There's ski hills and everything. But now it's migrated to Mexican Americans, which he has trained. They're absolutely terrific craftsmen. It's unbelievable. And you walk and you look at every single detail, spectacular. You know who else does that? R.P. Marzilli and other partners that we have. Always striving to be better. So our goal is, when we go out, let's see, is there anything else on here? It's a video? No, I'm not gonna do it. That's so exciting, I can't sleep. But anyway, the key as we grew, got to 60 million, great accomplishment. For those of you who have an entrepreneurial spirit, one of the ways that you get from 90,000 to 60 million is what, Bob? You reinvest, you reinvest, you reinvest. You know, it doesn't happen by accident. One of the greatest little programs we had at Mariani is when we had, at that time, Gino Cacciatore. A lot of times, I'd rather eat it than, but anyway, Gino Cacciatore, our CFO, got up and he did the 100 pennies. Has anybody ever seen the deal where they do 100 pennies? They said, okay, 23 of these pennies go to labor. 33 of these pennies go to materials. And, you know, right on down the list. And then they show a few pennies that are left over. And guess what you're doing with those? You give to Uncle Sam, because they do like it if you pay your taxes. And the rest, you buy that next truck. You hire that next associate. You buy the new computer. You go from asset to aspire. You do these things and this thing, and that's what you do. You really only, and a lot of times, you know, when people ask me what was one of the mistakes I made, I said, you know, I probably shouldn't have thought, even though the case was every single year we did better, but I never really took the type of money off that owners should take off in case you have a bad day. So that's a lesson I learned, and that's something I try to share with other people. But when I sold my company, I did have a cash event. For the first time, after running the company at that time 47 years, I had some money that I put in the bank. Didn't change my lifestyle, didn't do anything else. But I was able to reward some associates and things like that, and I was able to reinvest in this new business, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again. Why are people like the Marzillis, why the Vedranis, again, this Italian thing, I don't know. Why are we doing that? So that each and every one of you associates at Planet Earth, all the ones at RPM, all the ones at Mariani, have greater opportunity. So that's a pretty good thing, and that's something that really drives us. I'm getting a little long, so I want to jump to a couple of things. I told you why I sold Mariani. It was for our associates. When I wrote the script, which was really spectacular to be able to write the script, what did we want to do? I started with simplicity, to have the best landscape company in the world. And by the way, all the disciplines that entails, in other words, it's not just maintenance, it's not just installation, it's fine gardening, it's sustainability, it goes, in some cases, it's masonry work, some of them are building pools, some are doing great cabinetry, carpentry work, lighting, pest control, whatever the case may be, to be the best in each particular discipline. That's what we're setting out to do. That's what we're trying to do each and every day, and we've been pretty successful with that. But I base things, again, simple. To me, we have two commandments You know, 10 was way too many, and I don't even believe in all of them. But anyway, the two commandments that we have is, number one, how can we really delight our clients? You know, I mean, there was a book, Raving Fans and all that kind of stuff. But really, what are we doing each and every, if you base every decision that you do, whether it's landscape architecture, or whether it's bid build, or whether it's what can we do that will delight our clients? If you base every decision on what is most advantageous to our client, I gotta think you got a pretty good company. The second commandment, what can we do that will create an environment where you never lose an associate, where they always see the possibilities of what can come with hard work and devotion and taking chances, and I do mean taking chances. I encourage every associate of Mariani Premier Group, take chances, stretch a little bit, understand that you're going to make mistakes, and we love that. But if you take care of your clients and you take care of the people that work with you and for you, guess what? Life is wonderful, and that's what we try to do at Mariani Premier Group, and it's one of our driving parts. When I wrote the script, found the private equity group to partner with, and then we decided we were going to go after the best companies. Those guys are looking at me and say, "You're going on as long as Frederick." Too bad. But anyway, you can't do it. So anyway, yeah, but you know, no, with the Premier Group, as it said, what we wanted to do is, we were told, I was at an ELCA convention in Baltimore, at the downtown, by the water. A guy named Brian Corbett, who's a broker, came up to me. He said, "I want to buy you lunch." He's a big spender, took me to Hooters. Believe it or not, I go there for the chicken and the So anyway, by the way, that's a true story. So he sat there and he went through the whole thing, and the tab comes, and he said, "You know, Frank, I'd like to, you know, I was 15 million, 20 million then, I'd like to sell your company." I said, "Okay." He's about to pay the check. And I said, "You know, I'm surprised." He goes, "What?" I said, "I'm all residential." He gave me the check. He said, "There'll never be a roll-up or consolidation of residential. Never. It's only commercial." Okay? And quite frankly, up to a couple years ago, think about it. Brightview, if anybody's from Disaster, take two-story brand and destroy them. Let's have Valley Crest, California, $1 billion. Brickman, who started about 20 minutes. I loaded Theodore Brickman's truck when I was 8 years old in my grandpa's nursery. Okay? $1.6 billion. Destroyed those companies. There's some good commercial, like Yellowstone, Land Care, you know, better than the Brightview thing. But everybody said, "You can't do residential." I said, "Why?" He said, "You can't scale. 90,000 to 60 million. Bob Marzilli, starting in his basement to when he sold at 50 million at that time, Bob? Chris and Marcy started from nothing. We can scale. So we started, wrote the script, said, let's keep it quiet for about 12 to 18 months. And before we knew it, we were over $200 million. Now we let the world know. And now, because of the Planet Earth Group, now because of Bob and the Marzilli Group, nobody knows it, so please do not share it, but we're over $600 million in 36 months. Again, never set out to be $600 million. Could care less about being $600 million. What I care about is partnering with the best companies in every high-end market around the country. Last thing I want to say to the landscape architects. We were design build at Mariani Landscape. We were doing, in my opinion, some of the best work in Chicago. And I would go to the high-end architects like Peter Bach and Graham, or when Stern came and did projects in Chicago, and the interior designers, Cara Mann, the best interior designers, said, you guys like Mariani's work? We think it's fantastic. Why aren't you giving us any business? You're design build. I go, what do you mean? He said, you give your design away, we charge for our ideas and design. I said, really? That's why you didn't? Yeah, we'd love to refer you, but you're design build. The next day, we became landscape architecture company. We have our separate studio. We became a landscape GC, general contractor, and we became landscape maintenance. And you can use any of those. You don't have to use them all. It changed everything. It opened up the doors. The thing that I was most impressed about is that I used to call the landscape architects, socialists, because they always felt like they were second fiddle. second fiddle. Second fiddle to the architects in the room, to the engineers in the room, the interior designers in the room, when in fact, many times our landscape architecture was much more complicated, and quite frankly, we deserve a seat every time we sit at that table, because what we do is one of the best professions in the world. It changed Mariani Landscape for us. But I also work with my buddy Doug Hare Shout in Chicago. We do all of his best projects. I work with Ed Hollander in Chicago. I will never step on it. I'm hoping to work with Dan Gordon in Chicago. I will never step on the toes of when an architect brings us a project. And quite frankly, I like taking other people's and other companies' plans, flowing and learning from that experience. So I'm way over. I'm way off track. I'm going to play really a great video. So, yeah, one of the things that I like showing that is that when we're meeting with our new companies is just getting started. What's exciting is the work that Bob Marzilli at RPM is doing. When our team goes out and shows our client what we're doing, or we're trying to win a project, we say, that's our work. The work that Berghoff is doing in Scottsdale, that's our work. The work that Planet Earth is doing, that's our work, and vice versa. It goes right down the list. But I'm extremely proud of this team. And Bob, would you mind coming up? Because
Does anybody have any questions for Frank before Bob joins us? And, any questions? Mariani, Planet Earth, anything from me? We had a couple staged questions. Frank hasn't seen these yet, but actually maybe he has. I who's been in this industry since I was about 18 years old. I'm about to turn 55. When I started landscaping, I worked for a guy named Landon Reeve. He took me to meet this man when I was like 20 years old. Frank and I have known each other a long time. As a kid wanting to be better in my role, these two guys are the two that put residential landscaping on the map for at least a guy like me. So it is an honor to have you two gentlemen on the stage. This guy's in Boston, which is where I was from. So if anybody has any work in Boston,
talks funny.
yeah. So
I just wanted to key on one thing that Fred said. No, sorry, Fred. But it has to do with why I joined Mariani and the Premier Group. It has everything to do with professionalizing our industry. I've been at it. My grandfather came over from Italy. Again, something in common, right? In 1910, my other grandfather, same thing. My mother's side is called Tossi, T-O-C-C-I. They're about $1 billion building company around the Boston area. So I had a choice to do one or the other. I've got my degree in landscape architecture. Love it, but I hated working the board. So I chose to be a contractor, chose to construct things, chose to really elevate the masonry end of the business, which I think we've done up in our marketplace. But more importantly, the next choice was to professionalize residential landscape perspective, professionalize how the world looks at landscape, residential landscape contractors. We're not somebody that has a pickup truck and throwing a lawnmower in, and that's it. We touch everything on the outside of everyone's property. We beautify property. We work. I love landscape architects, and I love my relationship with them, which is very similar to Planet. So we try not to step on the landscape architects' toes, but what we actually do is work out relationship with them prior to make sure that we're working together as a team. That's how we always approach it. We work with Reed, Hildebrand, Stimson, Gordon, Lombardi, whatever. We work with a bunch of different landscape architects. We really enjoy getting together with them, working with them, but more or less, we're always trying to elevate the game, always trying to be better, but more importantly, we're trying to make all of us better. That's why I joined the group. That's what we're doing. We do have the ultimate peer group. We're trying to figure out how the hell we do it better every day, but that's really the reason why I did it. And I got 3 kids who watch me work 20 hours a day for the last 40 years and don't want to do that. So what do you do with the 400 people that are working for you to make sure that you're going to guarantee their success in their careers, which I've got probably, like I say, I got 40 or 50 people that can run $20 million companies. So as a result, how do we hold on to them, and this is what we're coming up with. And again, we're keeping our own fingerprints on what we're doing, and more importantly, we're sharing the best practices with each other. So it's working so far. Yeah, it's only been for me 2 years, and not every day is a great day, but at the same time, every day is a learning day. So I do appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come up here and share with you, really. And hopefully we can all walk away from this a little bit better, because that's all we try to do. So that's my spiel.
thank you, Bob.
That okay?
Yeah.
Did I take you on?
No. I love that. You can tell they're So just a couple questions, and while you're both up here, maybe each one of you could ask or could answer. So what have you found the most effective way to help residential customers value their landscape and budget accordingly for their upkeep and management? So basically, how do you validate budgets to them?
Number one of the biggest challenges for the sales team, whether it's maintenance or construction or enhancement, fine art, is getting a budget. I've never found that to be a problem because I would say, okay, Mrs. Marzelli, you want a pool. That's $250,000. You want a fireplace, that's $75,000. You want a bocce ball court, you want this, you want an herb garden, whatever you want. You created a budget, it's $500,000. Well, we were planning on spending $100,000. I said, okay, well, then you're probably not gonna swim. You get one of those slip and slides, and, but let the client really drive the budget. You know, I mean, so that's been an easy learning experience for the team. But, and the other thing is that if you're taking photos of your before, during, and after work, you can show everybody what's involved. Now, one of the things that we found, one of the reasons I like teaming up with architects, a lot of times they do a better job of doing the things that are hidden in the cost of the project, and showing that you do need under drainage, showing that that the soil should be prepped accordingly, and then building a spec that we can go to the architecture team and saying, this is what's going to cost, this is what you designed, and having an explanation with the client. Some of those projects, the Mariani projects that we showed up there, and that Bob does, and that you've done, those plants, after 1 year, we're taking photographs of our project. They're full grown, beautiful. We buy the best plants, but most importantly, it's what's happening underneath the top layer of mulch, which I like leaf mulch, not shredded bark. Everything underneath is what's creating an environment where those plants can look terrific, because people nowadays do not want to wait for anything. And guess what? That's our opportunity to create something spectacular really quickly, and it's something that's outstanding and beautiful. So that's what I do. Bob, anything different?
No, I don't want to say anything, no, you got it covered.
All right, so maybe I'll direct this one to Bob.
Good.
Working in a high-end residential landscape business, we sometimes have moments when we're on site, we just stop and think, wow, this is an amazing project, and I'm part of it. Can you tell us about one of your projects that you've really enjoyed working on?
We usually have anywhere between 20 and 40 projects going at the same time. Some of them are $2 to $4 million, some of them are $20,000 or $100,000, and each one is special. But again, we have, I think I've taken Ernie to one that's special to me is Ernie Bach's house, right? So Ernie Bach is a car dealer. His dad was a car dealer in the Boston area, and he inherited probably 30 or 40 dealerships. And there was a time that not a super would come into the country without giving the Bach family $200. So this guy got what was a French estate that I think was owned by the Bird family, Bird Roofing, back in the day. And through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when they sold off all the land, shrunk down to about a 2-acre piece. And so he came on board, and we worked together, again, with Dan Gordon's office, to basically give him a master plan of what it could look like if you bought this property, that property, that property, that property. So we ended up buying 22 properties around his house over the course of about 15 years ago. We started about 25 years ago working with him. And Frank has been in his auto salon, and what he's built there is incredible. And it's been just a lot of fun, because when they enjoy the work, when they enjoy the end product as much as you enjoy doing the work, you just look at it and you're just like, wow, I can't believe it. it's a generational thing that you do. We did a project on Nantucket with the U-Golf back about 12 years ago, where we took 18 acres, bulldozed it, literally moved millions of yards of material around. And Cummings out of New York was the landscape architect who put it together for him. And that one there we did, it was an $8 million job. We did it in 19 months. And that's the type of stuff that when you get on it, you're like, holy shit. You know, but you do it, and it's a challenge, but it's also just, it gives you an opportunity to experience stuff that you know, I grew up cutting grass like everybody else, and we're just, we're happy to be here. And again, so get up every day and try to do it a little bit better. Believe me, I screwed up, but I really just keep at it.
Chris, I wasn't gonna talk, but we had a project with, anybody in this room familiar with Rosemary Bearden? You know, who's the absolute spectacular, from England. And when it came to herbaceous plants, she was unbelievable. We did a project with her and Debbie Nevins out of New York, in Lake Forest. And same thing like Bob, given a very short timeline to complete this project. Well, part of it was building a English wall garden. And so they said they wanted 18-foot walls, Kushwa brick, concrete center, rebar, double-faced. And I said it's going to look like a penitentiary. I mean, 18 feet, and plus, how are we going to grow plants? There won't be. So I actually went out and I had the team put up burlap walls 18 feet. They all looked at it and said, do it. They went, okay. So we get halfway through the project with the timeline. This is way too high. Yeah, I think it is. Well, take it down. Double side, concrete, rebar. I said, okay, not a problem. You know, this is what it's going to cost. There was no issue with the money. But there was one issue. Still had to get the project done in the same amount of time. I went out on the curb in my office, literally, because this was a huge job, sat on the curb and was crying. Said, it's impossible. And this gentleman, you did not say, so we had to figure it out. So we doubled up the crews, and we brought in another mason to work with our mason, which was unheard of at that time. Especially two different Italian masonry contractors didn't like each other. But we made it worth their while, and long story short, came up, they were going to have 1,000 people from Chicago Botanic Garden through this garden. The owner only liked bent grass. And we had an expert that came and said, you have to get washed bent grass. It was June, it was 90. The bent grass, and it had to be washed. In other words, there's no soil, so you wouldn't have an interface between the soil that the sod was grown on and the base, the 90-10 sand to organic material. We had to lay that, so it came from Georgia, 90 degrees out, set up lights, did it in the middle of the night when it was a little cooler, and a week later, they had 1,100 people through the site. It was absolutely perfect. So those kind of things, what was interesting, we were working 7 days a week, and Bob, he shared this with me before. When the team was done, you're almost like, what do I do next? You know, because it was just, everybody was working together, everybody was pulling on the oars at the same time. What do we do next? You know, what could possibly be a bigger challenge? We've had bigger challenges, and we're lucky enough to do that. We also have got the reputation. Now, that's why Doug Hare uses only us on this really complicated project, because he knows our team will get it done. He happens to use now, I figured I was suffering enough with Doug. Bob gets to suffer with him too now. He gets to do projects with Doug on the East Coast. So it all comes around.
Excellent. I think we're about out of time.
Well,
any
you know what,
questions?
Frederick apologizes for what I said.
It's not your fault.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah. Any questions? Have to be brief if you have them. All right. I think
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it back over to
Thank you, everybody.